All right, I want to welcome Matthew Drager, driver number 21 modified, over here to the Moxie Mini Promotions table for an interview. Matthew, first of all, I want to say thanks for taking your time to talk with us. And man, what a great looking GRT out. That's a beautiful race car.
Thank you. We've been working pretty hard on that, really staying busy and doing what we can between other customer projects.
Well, it's been kind of cool for me and Josh over the winter to kind of get the teasers that you kind of sent out to us, and we couldn't put public, and we held our word on that, but it was kind of hard because a lot of guys were real curious about that race car. And these GRTs that you guys are, you're the dealer for them in the area, and they are, I mean, you talk about a race car that's coming on. The modified class hasn't really been dominated by a chassis manufacturer up until the last couple of years when Drager Performance signed on with the GRT crew, and the input you guys are able to get from GRT directly and apply to the products coming out of your shop has really helped your customers. And the GRT cars right now, I have to say, are the cars to beat in the Northwest.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership for us at Drager Performance. We're working with GRT. To date, we've brought 11 cars out to the Northwest. We've sent 4 to California now, and Dad was actually just back there picking up our new batch this week. So he's down in Medford delivering cars right now and staying busy.
It's going to be an interesting 2016 racing season in the modified division here in the Pacific Northwest and really up and down the West Coast, because here in the Northwest we're starting to see a little bit of a movement, and a couple chassis manufacturers in particular really starting to get a solid foundation between the GRTs and now the Victory Circles, a couple of big names jumping in there. So it's going to be fun to watch those two manufacturers throughout the Northwest this year and to see who does what. Hanson's got the new VC. Colin Weinberger's in the new VC, but the GRT really reeling in some big names, and they're going to be some great race cars. We've seen that in the last couple of years, and 2 years ago when you jumped in this modified class, it was a big learning experience. These are not easy race cars to drive. Like any young driver in a high horsepower car on a small tire, you had your moments where you showed the improvement. You had your moments where it was a rookie season and you were learning. That being said, Matthew, I've got to tell you, after what you did last year, if we had a most improved driver in the modified division here from Moxie, you would absolutely get that award. You had one heck of a season last year.
Yeah, last year was really up and down. I mean, we had some really fast cars where I made mistakes or we got caught up in other stuff. But anytime you can go win, heat races at some of the big races and set a track record, it's a pretty good season. Just we got to finish it when it comes feature time.
Now, you grew up with your dad, Brian, racing both late models and mods, and that's kind of where you pretty much started your racing career. When you got into college, you're helping Josh Sims and Greg Hansen, and that's what got you into a cage kart. And you drove cage kart for a couple years, right?
Yeah, I was helping them, in my free time after school and on weekends and stuff, and just had the opportunity to get a used kart and ran that for a couple of years. It was a learning experience. I mean, we were on a real tight budget, and when you're learning on a tight budget, it gets tough, but we made it work.
Absolutely. No, when you talk about, like, in 2012, you bought your first 2005 GRT. Your first mod. So what decided to go from like cage kart stuff, go-kart stuff or whatever, and to go into racing modifieds? I mean, that's a huge jump.
Yeah, it is. Really, the cage karts were always just a stepping stone. It was a way I could start racing at a little lower budget. And I had the opportunity to sell the cage kart at a pretty fair price, to where I was able to get a roller modified. So, I mean, it took me a little time after that to put the motor together, but it was the opportunity to step up. And we bought that car and ran it and just kept plugging away and improving on it. And then obviously when we got the chance to be GRT dealers, I went ahead and jumped on the new car.
No, that's awesome. Now we have about 22 cars in here, everything from dirt modifieds, IMC modifieds, to we got a sport mod, late models, sprint cars, and everything else. By far, when your car came in last night, when we started rolling in all these cars for the car show, your car outside kind of stand out. I mean, a lot of these new cars and stuff stand out, but that 21. Now, everybody kind of had it on back, quarter panel for a while, and we talked about it a little before, and, people had it on the doors and everything. Yours goes from the quarter panel up the cell panel and half the door. and it's bright. It's pink with highlights. Man, it is outstanding to me to see that car. It's very, very bright. It's going to be absolutely amazing underneath the lights. What made you do that?
Well, the pink was kind of a joke. My brother had my rear end powder coated pink a couple of years ago, and it was a big joke. Everyone laughed, but no one thought it would go anywhere. And last year we decided to go black with the car and wanted something that would stand out, so we went pink. And this year, again, we just want to do something different that no one else has. And when you see that car, there's no denying whose it is. It's not, oh, another white car, it's bam, there it is. So it accomplished the goal there.
Well, they're saying that's the only modified or race car you could actually see from space. The number's huge.
I don't doubt that. If anyone says they didn't see me on the track, they're full of it.
They're lying, yeah. And I'll tell you, as an announcer, on behalf of Josh and myself, thank you. It's an easy car to see. We're going to know where Matthew Drager is all the time. But Matthew, kind of going back to your roots with your dad racing late models, in the 80s and the 90s, and he was kind of that guy that he wasn't really the big star. He wasn't the Tom Wagner, the Bob Jeffrey, the Darren Koffel, the Russell. He was the little engine that could. And I'll tell you what, you want to talk about a guy that made the most of what he had and won some races. Brian Drager was that guy. I mean, he held his own against the big guys when he didn't have the money or the newest equipment. You, on the other hand, have had an opportunity to really jump in some great equipment, and man, I'm telling you, really got a lot of people talking about last season. That 21 car became a real threat to win at any time. And when you break the track record at Willamette Speedway against the field of cars that you did, that, my friend, says a lot. Not just about the equipment, but about the man behind the wheel. New track record last year, 15.238 in a modified. Are you kidding me?
That's flat hooked up right there.
Yeah, that was a pretty good lap. I honestly didn't think we were going to get it. I knew the track was good. Late models were breaking it. But guys were starting to lose it in 1 and 2 the last couple laps. And Doug Davenport, I owe it to him. He came down and stuck his head in the window right before I rolled out and told me to move up a foot and a half and go for it. And it worked. That was pretty cool.
Well, it paid off, and to have your name in the history books at Willamette Speedway in the Northwest, a track that definitely is the most famed dirt oval here in our region, with the history that track has. That's a pretty cool feat to have. And 2016 shaping up, a lot of excitement coming out of the Drager Performance Stables. You guys are really starting to take over the modified situation with cars that all over the Northwest. Let's kind of talk about some of the plans for Drager Performance here in the near future and what you guys are really doing over there.
Yeah, right now, we're just continuing to grow at a reasonable pace. Obviously, we want to expand and keep doing more for our customers and expand that customer base, but we have to do it realistically. This isn't a full-time job for anybody in the family, so this is our after-hours deal. So Dad's doing a great job fixing cars. I think he's had 4 or 5 cars on the jig, getting re-clipped and stuff this year. Heck, mine was on the jig, getting some updates as well. So we're working on that. He's doing the fab stuff, selling cars. Obviously, like I said, we've sold 11. We've got 4 more coming this summer, so we're not slowing down on bringing cars out. And then parts, obviously. I mean, we focus on the GRT for chassis. That's our exclusive deal, but we will fix, repair, sell parts for anything. We just became dealers for Carl Performance a couple months ago, and that's already become a huge thing for us because we've got a even larger product base, and it helps us better serve the racers.
So in 2014, kind of stepping back a little bit, you ran 4th up at Shipwreck Beads up there at Grace Harbor. One of your best years of 2014. 2015 was kind of a little up and down, like you said. Talk to me a little bit about how 2014 was a good year for you, especially going up to Grace Harbor for the first time, running up there, for the Mod Nationals, for the Grace Harbor deal. Talk to me a little bit about that. What did you do to get ready for that race?
We didn't do a whole lot specifically for that race. Different. That was the first time into the track, so we were kind of just going off good notes. It drives like a big Willamette, in my opinion. At least when it starts going slick. I mean, we see that every week down here. But 2014 was the first year on that new car, and it was a year old at that point, but it hadn't been raced, so we put that together. Pretty much right off the GRT baseline setup. I mean, they're quick out of the box. So just putting that together, being diligent with our maintenance and setup stuff. If you don't do that, you're not going to finish. So went up there. It was just a good year. We set a lot of, surprised myself a lot of times. That race was a lot of fun, though. I didn't expect to go up there the first time out and win heat races and run up front in a race like that.
Yeah, that's a tough gig up there at the Shipwreck Bead Nationals. That's a big race that draws some real talent. That was a great run. A lot of people talking about that, but you've kind of backed that up, like we talked about last year with the good, solid runs that you had, the performance you turned in last year. I mean, nothing to be ashamed of. It's been a good year. I know you're looking to build upon that in 2016. Are we going to see Matthew Drager travel up and down the West Coast to certain spots, maybe hit some big races, or are you going to focus on a championship at any particular racetrack?
Yeah, we kind of stumbled our way into running for points last year at Willamette. That wasn't the plan, but you get a few races in and suddenly you're sitting top 3 and you run it out. So we missed some races for that. This year, I think we're going to kind of shoot for the same thing. We'll run most of the Willamette shows unless they're conflicting with the Skinner race in Medford. That race is coming back. The Shipwreck Beads race. We'll hit all those. I think the way you become a better driver and a better team is you compete with the best. So we'll try to hit those big shows with 40 to 60 cars. And if finances are there at the end of the year, I'd love to go down to Bakersfield, maybe Vegas. We gotta get through the year though and see where we're standing.
Talk about fun rides. Now, driving a modified, of course, has to be fun for you. What was kind of fun for the fans last year was at Willamette Speedway, and it kind of hitting on a little bit. You kind of went up and over on your top. Do you remember this race? So this, mind you, was our live broadcast that we did.
That was actually my teammate. I had a first.
Oh, that's right. It was.
I had a first-hand view of that, but luckily it was not me.
Yeah, when that happened, the whole crowd and everything else happened. But you talk about the Skinner race, the Memorial race. You started last year. You said 2015 was a struggle at times. When you went down the Skinner Memorial race, you started third in the very first heat and took the lead in the very first turn. And then, of course, your second heat had a little bit of problems. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was one of those weekends where you're at the end of it, you're frustrated, but it's hard to be mad because the car was so good. Won our first heat race and then had an electrical issue and missed a second one. So we had to run alphabet soup, and we did it both days. We almost made the show both days. Went through shocks and radiators and everything in the process. There was after the D-main the first night, my crew in Weinbarger's and Campos changed the radiator in 5 minutes between mains with me still in the car. So, I mean, it was one of those deals where the car was fast and we just didn't catch any breaks. I think we turned 300 laps that weekend between practice on Friday at Willamette, towed down there, run alphabet soup both days. It was a long weekend, but it was one of those things where it's hard to be upset. We were fast.
It's kind of like your own training regimen sitting behind the wheel of the race car, isn't it?
That was a long weekend, let me tell you.
Yeah, let's kind of touch base more on your background with your dad, because your dad really wasn't a modified guy growing up. I mean, you guys spent your whole career mostly focused on the late models. I mean, he ran, through the ranks up into the late models with some of those guys, the legends that we talked about, and he held his own against them. So the modified division starts to develop. What made the decision to kind of focus in the modified direction?
Well, for me, it's all about money. So I just can't afford to put together a late model. Obviously, I think they're the baddest cars around, and if I could, I would be in them. But that being said, you got to race what you can afford. And right now, that's modifieds. There's a lot of great competition in them, great racing, and I can go anywhere and do it. So we're just going to stick with that. And if the opportunity presents itself in the future, we'll see what happens.
Now, you talk about, last year you finished third in points. And even having a kind of an off season in 2015, you still finished third in points, racing with some of the top competitors here in the Northwest. They talk about how East Coast and Midwest have the top drivers. The West Coast here is having some extreme some drivers coming out of it that are outstanding performance wise. Some of the guys are going down to California, Arizona, and stuff like that. Do you see in the future of Drager Performance and Matthew Drager in your race team doing some of this more traveling, if you can? Or are you just going to focus more or less on points here, Willamette Speedway, Banks, all that type of stuff? Do you feel in the future that you're going to be traveling more?
Yeah, I think we'll be traveling more. We're not obviously, but I don't think we're going to be a team that goes back and, spends 3 weeks racing.